Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our panel discussion on parenting during the pandemic. I would like to begin by thanking Seven County Services and its community partners for putting on this very timely forum. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the conversation about mental health and wellness, and particularly that topic within our Black and Brown communities. My name is Dr. Felicia Smith. I'm a child and adolescent psychologist in Louisville, and I co-own a group clinical practice called Strong Minds Psychology. The focus of my work is in the areas of adolescent development and parenting, and with a specific focus on diversity and culturally informed care. And in addition to my clinical work, I am also actively involved at both the state and national levels around health policy advocacy. So first of all, I know that there are a number of parents in our audience, and to you, I want to say great job. You've negotiated many ups and downs and twists and turns and quick stops during the course of this pandemic. We've all had mishaps. I've said to myself and to my family many times, I'm a child and adolescent psychologist. I should be able to do this well, and haven't on many occasions. But I have tried to give myself grace, and I hope the same for you. I know that there have also been a number of successes. So good job managing the challenges with flexibility and with great purpose. So the primary goal of this panel is to be extremely practical. We want to name and claim the stress that's involved with parenting during the pandemic. We want to identify signs and symptoms that support is needed and share valuable community resources that may serve as support as we continue our journeys through these challenging times. So to provide a little context for the conversation, we know that in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, people are reporting increased stress and rates of depression and anxiety have increased significantly. Suicide rates are increasing, especially among Black youth. In fact, suicide is the second leading cause of death right now among Black youth ages 12 to 19. The stress associated with the pandemic is related to many factors. The isolation that we've experienced, the reduction in social life and physical activities, changes in our routine, economic insecurity for families, among many others. So we know that the mental health impact has been great, and we also anticipate that the disruption that we've experienced will continue to cause mental health impacts for years to come. So today we want to try to help mitigate those impacts by encouraging conversation about these challenges, and also by mobilizing people to engage others in the conversation. So that may be in your homes, in your neighborhoods, at your work setting, at your school, or among your friend groups. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our wonderful panelists for today. Each are engaged in this topic as parents and through their work lives. And they are going to share some of their personal stories during these times, and also share resources and information with you that we hope will help you and that you can use to help others. Each will share, and then we'll have a question and answer session in the end. So please enter questions that you may have in the chat box, and I'll be tracking those, and we will do our very best to address those before the end of our time together. And I'll introduce each speaker immediately prior to their presentation. So our first speaker is Ms. Shamika Whiteside. Shamika is the founder and executive director of Zora's Cradle maternity program in Louisville, Kentucky. Ms. Whiteside received her Master of Science degree in social work from the University of Louisville and a Bachelor of Arts degree in liberal studies with a minor in African American studies from the University of Illinois at Springfield. Her research interests include maternal morbidity of Black and Latinx expectant mothers, women, and dual diagnoses. She is the mother of a delightful 13-year-old son and the wife of a self-proclaimed Marvel Comics fanatic. That's an introduction. Go ahead, Shamika. Thank you.
Sorry, taking myself off mute. Technology in the pandemic. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My presentation is going to be on accessing resources within the local community, and also self-care, engage in those things. I know that there's a lot of things happening right now with the pandemic. I just want to make sure that people are able to take care of themselves, and also if they need something else, to reach out and secure those things. So the name of my presentation is Give Me a Break, Self-Care and Parenting During the Pandemic. I showed this to someone before I did this presentation, and they thought it was in regards to like Kit Kats, give me a break, that whole slogan. It can apply to that, but mine, because I'm a huge 80s sitcom fanatic, is Nell Carter's Give Me a Break. For people who are like, what is that? We'll talk afterwards in the Q&A. We're, just missing out on great sitcoms and quality television. That's a whole nother presentation, but I want to go ahead and jump in. Push the wrong button. Okay. Here we are. So just a little bit more about me. And thank you so much, Felicia, for the intro. But besides my work, here is my kiddo. You see the first picture. That's how I want to remember him, as this sweet kid who just loved his mama and did whatever his mama said. However, during the pandemic, my kid is just doing whatever, with NTI. He's not doing his NTI assignments. He went from a straight A student to I'll do all my homework at the end of the week. He is much more needy than I realized. Mom, can you open this package? Mom, can you pour the package inside the bowl? Mom, can you scratch my head? So on and so forth. In the past, Mama, could go, look forward to going and doing things with friends. However, sorry, someone said we see your presentation, but we have no sound. Oh no, can everyone hear me? Okay, I'm sorry, but gotcha. But sorry, lost my train of thought. But no, so there we go. Someone can hear me. There we go. I just want to make sure that everyone can see me and hear me. But yeah, just as a mother navigating the pandemic, and also as a wife, I know that a lot of times people talk about parenting, but sometimes parenting also seems like it involves your spouse as well. He was self-sufficient. I don't know what's happened during COVID. It's a mama show right now. But areas of concern, and here's Nell Carter from Give Me a Break, for, like I said, so you can see the face and know who she is for people who aren't familiar with the television show. But areas of concern over the course of the pandemic, one of the biggest stressors for parents surveyed by the University of Oregon's Rapid EC project has been the inability to sufficiently feed, clothe, and house their children. For some parents, leaving the workforce means being pushed into poverty, with Black and Latinx families at a disproportionate risk due to racial pay and wealth gaps. Downtime on nights and weekends for parents is mostly a thing of the past. If you guys remember, your kids drove you crazy, your husband drove you crazy, you can go out and have some martinis with your friends, or go bowling, or just go to your family member or friend's house and just have a good time sitting on the porch. Can't do that now because of social distancing and so on and so forth. So your rest area, your work area, your parenting area is all in one. Oh, I went back to that. So it's pretty much all in one now. So if you're seeking a break, it's like those things do not exist. Your previous distressing outlets are gone. I'm sorry, technology. So some of the interventions I was hoping to propose within my presentation: one, making sure you do an informal needs assessment within your household. I know for those of us who are in the social services field, we mentioned, always check in with your stakeholders. I at first thought, my son, I'll just get him a bunch of toys and make sure I'm really involved with his NTI and everything could be okay. But my son was like, I really just want to go for a walk around the block. And can we go to, Trader Joe's or some other places and get some stuff, things that I wanted to do. I can't go outside, but bringing the outside in. So just making sure I talk to the people that live in my household, rather than assuming as superwoman, most parents are that way, or super dad, that, we can come up with something, everything be right, but just making sure we see what everyone in your house needs, just making sure that they're comfortable. So talk to the people in your house. I know it sounds like common knowledge, but you'd be surprised. I'm like, did you talk to your kids about how they're handling this or what they need? Does not happen. But doing something as simple as that can help reduce the level of stress in your household. Utilizing community-based resources available to women and families. I'll touch on that in just a moment. Those are definitely 8 ways to de-stress. There's a lot of people that are, especially those that I serve within my program, there seems to be shame Man, I was doing so well financially and now I'm not. I know that they're offering food assistance, at JCPS and so on and so forth, but I'm embarrassed to ask, honey, we're all struggling, go. So I just want to make sure I put that out there in case someone needs to hear that as well. But just also coping and self-care strategies to support mothers during times of stress. And I'll touch on some of the things that I'm currently utilizing that have been helpful. And just also giving other suggestions to what I've heard have worked for other people as well. So we're going to start with some of the community-based resources that some people may not know about that may help you with your stress level to reduce it a little bit. So I know that it's kind of tiny on my screen. I apologize. But one of the main ones is Louis Connect. There is an app. If you just look up Louis Connect, there is an app that you can utilize. You describe it and, it will, I can pull it up another time, but when you click on the link itself, it has different needs. So it may list food, clothing, shelter, so on and so forth. You list it and you just have like a little dial. You address what needs you are, who you are, what you're looking for, and it takes you exactly to what you need. So for example, if I were someone that needed food assistance for me and my 5-year-old, I can make sure I put all my basic information in and it will tell me who is open, what services they provide. And I was told by the developer that it will actually take you to their doorstep. So it's like, oh, here is 7 counties, go in the door, I'm at the right place, versus for those of you in the past have looked up something on Google, certain business, and it takes you to the parking lot. I'm like, this place has been abandoned for 10 years. So it is, it's pretty current, but just make sure it takes you to the right spot and gives you other information. The Coalition for the Homeless Street Tips, just going to louhomeless.org. I know some people are like, I'm not homeless, but still the street tips on that website provide a wealth of information just to help you. They're comparable to what Louis Connect does, but just lets you know in terms of food, clothing, shelter, and so on and so forth in the community that's out there. I've used it from time to time, like, hey, who does this? So that's one link that's available. I always stress that it's not just for homeless people, it's for everyone. The Play Cousins Collective, they are an awesome group within Louisville that is making sure that we are looking to strengthen families, especially children. They provide a wealth of resources on their website, and at times at certain events, they can also provide daycare services. So they're a great organization to partner with. Currently, they have a listing on their website that lists out community partners. These are physicians, agencies, food resources, comparable to the other two, but there's a wealth of knowledge there. I also want to list 7 counties. We're at their conference right now. They're also helpful. Why wouldn't I shout them out? So they are also a great community-based resource to utilize. Even if you're not sure, just giving them a call and they can guide you in the right direction. One of them I feel like I'm saying a lot to my clients are insurance providers. I have clients that say, man, if I could just find someone to help me navigate all these things. And I'll say, do you have a case manager? And they'll say, well, I need one or I need a therapist, but I'm not sure where to find those individual things. I say, just call your insurance, call Passport, call Welker, whoever you're at Aetna, whoever your provider is, explain to the representative what you're looking for, and they can help you guide you in the right direction. Most of my referrals come from someone that just called their insurance agency and got guided in the right direction that led them to me. So that's one resource. And one I learned about recently through a client, I want to make sure I put that on here too. Being in the house, you don't realize how many diapers children fill up in a day because most times they're at daycare. Well, it's a lot. So there is a national diaper network that I wanted people to be aware of if they weren't sure. And it's national. I mean, I want to say it's national, it's in the title, Shamika. But one of the local providers of this one is the St. Bernadette Diaper Bank. So if you just go to the National Diaper Network, it should take you to all the different regions. And then I just made it easier instead of having to look for Louisville. I just want to let people know that St. Bernadette Diaper Bank, and that's what they do. I checked out their website. It's awesome. It's someone stacked up next to just a big old stack full of diapers. So if you're a parent that needs diapers, hit them up. I just want to make sure that people have the wealth of resources that they need, because there is nothing like, as a mother myself, there's nothing like a baby with poop up their back when you're already in the midst of chaos. Doesn't smell good either. So there's that piece of it. But I also want to mention just effective coping and self-care strategies. One thing, especially in terms of family, is just answer questions about the pandemic simply and honestly. Some families that say, my kid keeps asking me why we can't go outside, and I just keep saying, wait, well, you can't say that for the next year, and the best way you can to help de-stress, let your family members know what's going on for those that don't understand. And if you're unable to, reach out to one of the resources and find someone that could help your child or your other family members understand what's going on in the best way. Recognizing your child's feelings. Children want to go to some children, not my kid, but some kids want to go to school. They miss their friends and just engaging, but understanding if they're frustrated, if they're sad, like really recognizing your baby's feelings will help you also de-stress versus them being worried, you being worried. It's just a recipe for havoc. Keeping in touch with loved ones. I make sure I at least have a few times a week that I reach out to family members to make sure I can just vent about some of the crazy things that have happened during the week. I will actually be doing that after this presentation because Shamika's car broke down on the way here. So calling someone to tell them what happened will make the day much better. I look forward to things like that. Engaging in joyous activities with family and loved ones. We are now a huge game night family. We weren't before, but it is getting competitive in our house. So game night, drawing pictures, things that you did when you were a child, just bringing those things to the table can actually help with coping and self-care. And then my last one was creating a self-care kit, a leisure bin. These are just, you can do it for yourself, you can do it for your kids. I encourage some families, Dollar Tree is your friend. I love that place. You can go there, you can get slime for parents who like it. Play-Doh, just a wealth of things. Put it in a nice Tupperware bin. So when there is some downtime, you want to keep your kids busy or just have a good time, whipping all those things out and having, what have you. For parents alone, creating your own leisure bin. The leisure bin could be nail polish if you just want to give yourself a manicure. It could be a bottle of wine if you've had a really, really long day. Crossword puzzles, so on and so forth. I am a huge nostalgia junkie. You probably told that by the Give Me a Break thing. So mine, I have a picture. So it has all my favorite candies. As you can see on the screen, my Now and Laters, my Laffy Taffies has all my favorite candies. And I hide my leisure bin because I have a sweet tooth family. So those things are in there when I just need a break. And then at the top, I am a huge fan of, like I said, 80s movies. So I have like little toys I keep. I keep them so people don't see them and judge me. I'll probably put them in my office because I'm not ashamed now. The world knows. But I've got the guy from Gremlins. I've got that sandworm from the movie Beetlejuice. I've got troll dolls, things like that. I just keep in there just to give me a second to woosah, remember when times were calm, and then I put them back with my candy, and then I take another piece of candy, then I put it back. But things like that, just making one of those things for yourself and not doing it all at once. If you're just out at Walgreens or Walmart or wherever and you just see some candy, just grab it and put it in your bin and say, if I need a break, it's in there. But like I said, to also help with stress, if your kids have a sweet tooth like mine does, hide it because it'll cause more friction. But I'm just going to close with the best of luck. Please don't hesitate to reach out, if you need help. There's no shame in it. We are all struggling right now, but I hope with my presentation, I gave suggestions that you may have thought about, but just gave you that aha moment to revisit those individual things to making sure that you take care of yourself. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shamika. Those were great resources. Really appreciate the variety of resources that you share that I think really will help meet the gap for many families. So thank you so much. And the leisure bin is going to meet the gap in my house. I need one of those. Right, I need one of those, and it will remain hidden. Thank you. Let me go ahead and introduce our next speaker to you, Ms. Renee Murphy. Renee Murphy is the Chief Communications and Community Officer with Jefferson County Public Schools. She moved to Louisville in 2003 to be the weekend anchor and weekday evening reporter for WHAS. After working at WHAS 11 for 15 years, Renee decided it was time for a change and took a position in the communications department of JCPS. She is now the Chief of Communications and Community Relations for the district and informs the public about the transformation taking place in Kentucky's largest school district. When the pandemic started, Renee and her team were tasked with ensuring families and employees had consistent communication. She launched a daily newsletter, organized multiple virtual town hall meetings, and led countless campaigns to bring the most updated information to the community. Renee is a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University, where she studied broadcast journalism and mass communications. Thank you, and welcome, Renee.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Welcome. I have to follow Nell Carter. I mean, give me a break. I loved that show as a kid. So I thank you for that reference. And I, too, will have a leisure bin in my home. That is a perfect idea. I think I need a leisure bin at work also to de-stress sometimes. So thank you so much, Shamika. And I'll just kind of start, I want, if you get nothing else from what I tell you today, I hope that you all know that you are not alone. I had a girlfriend last night. We were really honest with each other about where we were, how we were feeling. And she said, "Oh my gosh, you feel that way too?" And I was like, "Yes." She's like, "I thought it was just me." I was like, "No, we all feel like this. Sometimes we just aren't talking about it." So I'm going to talk about it today. I will show you a little bit about my own story, balancing being a mom and also running the communications department in a time of true crisis. With a global pandemic, shutting down school, reopening school, doing virtual school. It was a lot going on. And I look back on it now, I'm like, holy moly, wow. I'm proud of the work that we did in our department here at JCPS. And even though I stumbled as a mom every day, as I still do, I think I learned some really valuable lessons throughout that process that will carry with me post-pandemic as well. So I think, do I share the presentation here? Let's see how that works. Okay, yes. This is my first time using this platform, so bear with me. Anytime I get an excuse to show a picture of my kids, I will. So you all get to see my kids too. I have 3 kids. They are 13, 10, and 7. KB, Catherine, and Kellen, whom I like to look at this picture and think it is always this joyful, and it looks like this at all times. As we all know, this is just a snapshot in time. But my kiddos are great, and they actually handled this as best as anyone could expect them to. So if you followed me on social media, you may have seen some great pictures that look like this. My 13-year-old being very studious at his laptop. You may have seen my smiling 7-year-old at his laptop doing NTI. And that was part of it some days, sometimes. And when it happened, I was like, I got to take a picture of this. I don't know when I'll see it again. And you may see that on social media. And I did share that. But I want to show you this picture because this is what we felt like a lot of the time at home during NTI, crying at the computer. What are we doing? How do we get through this? I didn't take pictures of those moments. So I stole this one off the internet. But there were a lot of times that we felt like this. So I'm trying to keep my kids motivated, keep 100,000 students motivated, and keep families encouraged and trying to balance all of that out. And there were many days that I sat just like this crying baby at the computer, like, what are we doing? How are we going to navigate all this? And then just when you think you had a handle on things, something else would happen. Like, hey, teachers are getting the vaccine. We are going back to school. Okay, this is happening. Now what do we do? So it was constant change and keeping up with that change and keeping my spirits high. So I think for all of us, we all challenged ourselves. And I love a challenge more than anybody else. So in the beginning, I was like, yes, let's do this. Challenges are hard, though, when you go on for an extended period of time in challenge crisis mode. But I am thankful that I was challenged because coming on the other side, I've learned so much. We all kind of developed new processes at home. Now at home, we have a chore chart. I know, right? Who wants a chore chart at home? But my kids needed some kind of schedule, some kind of a routine, because it just kind of went off the rails when school closed for a while and we're just kind of all over the place. And I remember we sat down together, we made this huge chore chart. And at the end, my kids were like, oh my gosh, I actually feel better. And I was like, what? You feel better? But they needed that security. My kids are the kids that had the agenda from school their whole lives. And there was no agenda suddenly, and they were still asked to do school, and they didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. So we had to develop some new processes. I think Dr. Smith mentioned before grace. We really had to, not just as parents or as families here, but in our district, we had to allow each other grace as staff members, principals, teachers, leaders. This group of teachers, I know better than any class I've ever had in the past. And it's wonderful. I'll send an email at 11 o'clock at night thinking they'll read it in the morning. They're up, they're online, they're responding. Not that I want them to be up that late responding, but I think it shows the connection that we all have. And I think that we've talked about it. And I said, look, I know I'm struggling. He's struggling. Help us. I was really transparent, and they've been so responsive. And when there be questions with them, they would say the same thing. Hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't get it graded yet. We're working on it. So we think as a group, parents, teachers, educators, kids, I have made sure to allow room for grace and forgiveness. I work a lot. There's some guilt that comes with that. And while your kids are also going through this whole other thing with the pandemic, and for many, many months, I felt very guilty. But I had to come to a place of forgiveness of myself. And also, if my kids weren't doing exactly what I needed them to do, I had to come to a place of forgiveness for them too, and knowing that we're all doing the best we can. And then that emphasis on wellness. I know for myself, I noticed in certain times that I was like, you know what? I am not taking care of myself. What have I eaten today? Was it Skittles? Was that lunch? And was that a good lunch? I mean, it tasted good at the time, but that's not going to sustain me. So I had to really take a step back sometimes too. And I encourage all of you as well, make sure we're taking care of ourselves. Put the emphasis on wellness, not just for your kids, not just for your spouse, but for yourself as well, so you can be there for them too. So you know what else I did during this time, and I'm going to take with me? We had a lot of conversations about how do you feel, especially over the summer. So we're in the pandemic. They're seeing images of Breonna Taylor. They're seeing the protests happening in the streets. They're seeing what's happened in Minneapolis. They're very aware of all these huge dynamics happening. And we sat down and had some conversations. And in the beginning, they did not want to talk about it. They were not in a place where they could, but I knew they had a lot of things inside. And so when they were ready to talk about it, I listened. I didn't say, hey, I got to take this phone call. Hey, I got to do this email. Hey, I got to cook dinner. I made sure I took time to listen. In the beginning, I wasn't. I was just like frantic and harried. And there came a point where I was like, I have to take that time and take that moment. And I have to remind myself of that too. To this very day, I had to do that just yesterday and remind myself it's okay. I had to leave work I never leave work at 5. I'm always the last person here. I'm super late at night worker. I should not be, and trying to get better at it. But I had to tell myself, you know what, my kids needed me to do something. And I said to myself, you know what, when I'm in the car with them this afternoon, I know I've got a million things on my mind with work, but I'm going to listen to them. But I had to remind myself of that. Another thing I had to do during this process too was accept the differences in my kids. So my son, the 13-year-old, who was my straight A student, I never had to look at an agenda. I never had to call a teacher. I just got the report card. It said A's, great. That was not the case during the pandemic. Let me tell you, it is not the case right now. We are trying to pass 7th grade collectively. And I had to know that he's not a college student. He's not an adult. He is not going to know how to manage his time and find the work and complete it all on his own. And I had to accept that because my 10-year-old, who was not my straight A student in school, suddenly became a straight A student in virtual school. Loved having her freedom, loved to organize the time on her own. And I had to accept, okay, they're different. I can't compare them. I can't compare them to anyone else. And I have to know where they are and meet them where they are. And that was hard for me because I was like, whoa, what is going on? And I had to kind of take a step back and just say, hold on, let me get it together as a mom and support both of them. And I also had to find a support network. I'd mentioned earlier, I had the girlfriend that was saying, oh my gosh, you feel like that too? Checking in on my friends and just saying, how are you doing? And when someone would say, oh, I'm good, fine, how are you? I'd say, okay, how are you really doing? And then we could have the real conversation because I needed that as much as they needed to say the words. We have these kind of conversations that are up here. Yay, good, nice to see you, hey. When you get to the next level, that's when it becomes meaningful and it's helpful. And those are the conversations that would get me through the days. So I created my own support network with my friends that I have in place, but taking those friendships to the next level and digging a little bit deeper to say, you know what, where is that leisure bin? Is there a bottle of wine in there tonight? Or whatever it is that is your stress reliever that may not have, you may not have thought about previously. And time out. I would say timeout, not just for kids, that has been the case in this pandemic, but having that time for yourself. It kind of goes back to the emphasis on wellness. For me, I would recognize, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to go to my room. I feel how I'm frustrated, especially in those days when I was working from home. They were at home. My husband was at home. I was like, whoa, we are all here all the time. What is going on? And like Shamika said, you realize how many diapers your kids go through, right? You realize all the things that your kids are like when you're with them all day and you're not on a vacation, or you're not doing some extra activity where you're all day together doing something fun, but you're just home doing regular stuff. So I recognize those little timeouts that I would need from time to time. I've recognized that, in fact, I need one right now, feeling that edge, feeling on edge. And I'm actually going to take some time tomorrow. I've scheduled a little bit of time because I think that makes me a better mom, makes me better for my department at work, and just makes me feel better as a person. So that's kind of, my mom side and my work side, that balance. But I do also, since I have you, I can't pass up this opportunity to talk about JCPS. I do love this district. I always tell my boss, the superintendent, that I couldn't do what I'm doing right now and speak to you and not love it and not mean it. He always says, I can tell when something's wrong. I have the world's worst poker face. So I would not be able to have these kind of conversations if I did not believe in the great work that we are doing, and the great work that we have done. And who would have thought I'd be working in the department during all this? But we have really come together. I think it's shown what's possible here. And we're seeing that through with our summer learning. So, you may say, okay, we've come through all of this. We've done some of those things that you mentioned, Renee. All right, now what? Okay, the great thing is that we have resources in JCPS. We have our summer learning registration that's available right now on our website where families can sign up. We have our Backpack League program that's at 100 sites throughout the community at our school buildings and at our community centers. It's a 6-week full-day program for 1st through 12th graders where they can get support in reading and math, which, let me tell you, if they're like my kiddos, we could use some of that right now. Some additional in-person instruction before the start of the school year is going to be so valuable. So that is one of the programs that we have. We have early childhood opportunities as well. So the first time we've had a 3-year-old camp. It's called Jumpstart. So learning about what is it like to be in a classroom type setting that's not quite daycare, but not quite school. So we have those opportunities available for families as well. And then we have opportunities for some of our older students to learn about career pathways. So there's programming available for that too. So please, I encourage you out there as we begin to come back to this sense of whole and resuming some of the activities that we have done before, we encourage you to explore our summer learning opportunities as we make this transition, especially into the new school year. And then, okay, that's where we are. That's where we were, balancing everything. Here's where we are right now, getting ready for summer learning as a district and figuring out how to get back to that sense of what is very familiar. And then what's next? So for us as a district, what is next? Some of the big things that are ahead for us. Our board just approved a new virtual school. So students in 6th through 12th grade could have an option to continue learning virtually in this new school, Pathfinder School of Innovation, which is a really exciting opportunity, I think, to be really creative and look at what is possible. I talk about my daughter. She loved virtual school. She thrived in that setting, and we know there are other kids that did as well. We also know there are families that still may have some concerns about what's going on. We're not out of this global pandemic. It's not over, right? So if parents still have some concerns about that, we have this option available for students in 6th through 12th grade. So what's school going to look like next year? Well, the way it stands right now, at this moment, as you know, things change every day. But as we stand right now, currently, the plan is to be back in person 5 days a week. There's no mechanism for us to go back to that full NTI model, the way the laws are written right now. So the plan is to be back in person 5 days a week, starting at the 21-22 school year. And, we're going to continue to monitor current community conditions. Like I said, you heard the governor came out with the executive order. It's going to follow the CDC guidance yesterday. We heard what's going to happen. He announced this morning that the mask mandate was going to be lifted June 11th. So, it is changing. So as things change, we will keep up with that from a district standpoint, and we'll certainly keep up with that to make sure our families are informed. So I will say it again, you are not alone. However you are feeling, I guarantee someone else is feeling like that too. If you ever thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing as a mom? You know what? We've all thought that. If you've ever thought, how am I balancing all of this? We are all doing the best we can, and know that JCPS is here as a resource, and we're continuing to provide support for students and families post-pandemic. And as we kind of come on the other side of this pandemic, I don't know if we're exactly post-pandemic yet, but as we are nearing the end of this pandemic, we are here and we are ready and we are available to support you and your students. So thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for all of your, for sharing your self-reflections over this year. I think, I hope that folks are learning some helpful nuggets about themselves as parents, as workers, as human beings through this process. I think that there are often hidden treasures in crisis. So thank you for sharing that personally, and also thank you for all of your work on behalf of this community to keep the JCPS families connected and engaged through this pandemic experience. We appreciate you. Okay, and so that takes us to Darcy. Let me tell you a little bit about Darcy. Darcy Taggart is a licensed art therapist, clinical counselor, and registered play therapist. She works for 7 County Services and runs the Early Childhood Initiative, serving the agency as an early childhood mental health specialist and a clinical supervisor for the Family Connections team. She loves working with families, especially those with young children, and helping parents find creative and positive solutions to their children's behavior and mental health needs. She received her master's degree in art therapy from the University of Louisville in 2002. Thank you, Darcy.
Thanks, Felicia. And thanks to Renee and to Shamika for all of their wisdom too. It's been fun to sit here and listen. I also, just like them, I'm a parent of a kid in the Jefferson County Public School District who was a junior this year. And my child also was, straight A student, never really had to worry about it too much prior to the pandemic. And then the last year has kind of given us a run for our money. I'm also married to a teacher, so I've gotten to watch that side of some of this as well. And I've been sitting here listening to all of this great wisdom about taking care of yourself and all of that stuff and thinking, what else do I have to add? But I would reiterate the same thing, that I feel like we are all very much in the same boat. And at the start of the pandemic, because I do early childhood clinical services here and work with a lot of other therapists who have had kids come in, I definitely have seen that the number of referrals that we've had for mental health that have come in, like, my kid's struggling, my kid's feeling depressed, all these things. And it's like, well, everybody's feeling that way. Everybody's feeling a little bit like they're struggling. And actually, sometimes they come in and say, like, I can't get my kid to do what they're supposed to do online. And I'm like, oh, if I could figure out how to get my kid to do, I will give you the wisdom that I've got. But I'm struggling with that too. And so I think the biggest piece of what I can say in parenting in the pandemic is everybody is in the same boat, that we're all trying to balance work and trying to balance home and trying to help our kids who are struggling and ourselves who are struggling. I pulled up a couple of things. I had said I was going to talk a little bit about what are those signs and symptoms of stress. What kinds of things do we see from individuals, not just from kids, but also from adults? And so some of the things that we've heard parents come in and say, talking about kids talk about stress, or all of a sudden there's some developmental regression, right? Kids who seemed to be very independent on their own have started to need a lot more support or a lot more care, or they're starting to ask for a lot more. I know Shamika mentioned this too earlier with like kids asking parents to do stuff that previously they would have just done for themselves. Crying, depression, difficulties with sleep. And I think it's not just kids that we're seeing have these difficulties, but adults too. But sometimes with adults, it's like we hear and we go, yeah, I'm stressed. And this, the pandemic is really hard, and working and trying to balance parenting, all of that's really hard. And we don't see the same signs in kids. We see kids doing the same things. We see them having difficulties with appetite, difficulties with sleep, difficulties with fears or new things developing, but we don't go, oh, maybe that's pandemic related. I think we just start to go, oh, there's something going on with my kid. And so being able to recognize that those same things that adults are experiencing, kids are experiencing those too, and talking to kids about that and being able to identify to kids, like, it's okay to feel some of those signs of stress, that these are also responses to stress. And kids will say, well, I don't really feel stressed, but the world is stressed. And so our communities are stressed. And I was talking to a parent the other day and saying, one day we had these little kids and they went to daycare and they had all their friends and they had their teachers and they loved going to school. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, that's not going to happen anymore. And we stopped talking to kids about why was that not happening. We didn't say, well, this is going on. There's this global pandemic. And we just said, well, there's no school today, right? So kids started to have these stress responses, and families were having these stress responses. And because of those things, I think we don't always recognize that some of the things that sadness presents as boredom. Nothing sounds interesting anymore. I no longer want to play the games that I like to play. I get confused. What I wanted earlier today, I said I wanted spaghetti for dinner, and now I'm cranky because it's not tacos. And so I'm having some distress and frustration that gets displaced. And things with that. I'm tired. I don't feel energetic anymore. I feel kind of lazy or lackadaisical, or kids that maybe originally had all this energy for stuff. Now we're not seeing that as much anymore. Kids that are saying, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to resist. Kids that resist sort of that new order. I don't want to do school online. I'm not interested in doing school online, but we need to do school online. Well, yeah, but I'm not engaged. I'm struggling with some of that engagement. And so I definitely have seen some of these responses increase over the last 6 months to a year. And whereas I felt like in the first 3 or 4 months of the pandemic, we had a big rally around that. We're going to do these things. We're all kind of in this together. And then those stress responses, the longer those things happened, those stress responses started to compile for children and for families. I heard somebody give a really great analogy around it. It was a little bit like, you went in, they said, I'm on the struggle bus, but I feel like I'm on this struggle bus all by myself. And then there's like a fleet of struggle buses next to me. And we all kind of went into this tunnel, and there was a light at the end of the tunnel initially. And then the light got further out. And then the light got further out. And then at some point the light started to disappear. And we're trying to figure out how to help families have that light come back so they can see the end of the tunnel. I think we're in that phase right now with the pandemic. I don't know that we're fully out of it, but I do think people are starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel start to return. But during the pandemic, parents would say, like, what do I do because we're in this time and we don't know what to do? How can I help build for my family? How can I help build resilience for my kids? And a lot of the things that I would tell families, self-care is a huge one. So parental resilience is a big indicator for kids' resilience. All of this stuff on this slide comes from the Kentucky Strengthening Families Initiative, which really looks at what are those protective factors that we can instill in families and instill to build resilience for children and to build resilience for our families. And the biggest one is parent resilience. That I can help parents become resilient by self-care, by telling parents to take care of themselves, by letting them have those leisure bins, right? Things that we do to give ourselves that time to just really know that I can take care of myself. I need to put my own air mask on, right? When you get on an airplane, and it always says that, put on your own air mask before you help somebody else. So parents need to do that. And I think a lot of the parents that I've talked to have, they've been burning the candle at all of the ends, right? Not just both ends, but like 14 ends, trying to get all the things done. And I say, what are we doing to take care of ourselves so that my resiliency, I can give then to my kids? Continuing to figure out ways for social connections, even in social distancing, that I find ways to stay connected with my family, whether that's through FaceTime or through Zoom calls or just or just regular phone calls. Game nights is a huge one. Finding ways to stay connected, that I'm still finding ways to stay attached to kids. A lot of times I hear parents talk about attention seeking. It feels like these kids are seeking attention from me. And I say, if you can reframe attention seeking as connection seeking, that this is my kid seeking a connection from me, and it may not be in an adaptive way or in a way that I feel super excited about doing, but they're asking for that connection. They're asking. So that behavior that I'm seeing is really a way of them saying, I need a connection from you. I need some ways for us to, as a family, continue to connect to each other, to continue to give me some ways to build my emotional competence, my social competence. How do I help give kids that feelings language to figure out how they're feeling, or to even give them that stress language and understanding of stress and how it feels in your body? And then also that we can really help by continuing to provide predictable routines and consistency during that time. That consistency and routines and offering choices where choices are able to be offered can be huge for kids, because a lot of the choices were taken away from all of us. But where can I still find choice in my day? Where can I still find access to control, to be able to give kids back a little bit of that control and give parents back a little bit of that control as well? Figuring out sort of what's the feeling going on, what's the need this kid has. Is it connection seeking? Is it attachment? Do they need a 5-minute power play break in the middle of my workday? That's something I did a lot at the very beginning of the pandemic. Was I'm sitting in front of my computer doing telehealth with clients, but I need to build 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go down and have a conversation with my kid. I need to build 5 minutes to go have that outside walk time. I need to build in little pieces throughout the day so that my kids don't have to gain it in ways that are maybe not as adaptive or not as helpful. And so that I stay connected to my kid in my parenting. And I need to really embrace the strengths of my kid. I need to be able to pay attention to what's going on that's good, to what kinds of things they're doing that are really, maybe it's not the same things that were great a year ago. Maybe I can't give them praise, but maybe I can praise them for, man, like, I have noticed you've been really helpful around the house, or I've noticed you came upstairs. Thanks for coming upstairs and talking to me. Thanks for, coming in and asking me to play with you. What are those paying attention to the good things that are going on and to the connections that kids are trying to make with us can be really helpful. And the biggest thing I can say to folks is don't be ashamed to reach out. I have 7 counties on there. I work for 7 counties, and this is a 7 counties forum. So definitely 7 counties is a place to reach out for mental health and for resources and access to those mental health resources with family therapy, adult services, children's services, school-based services. There's lots of different services that we can connect families to. The National Alliance for Mental Illness is also a great place to reach out and gain access to resources. But either way, regardless of whether you're reaching out for mental health services or you're reaching out to other people who are parenting during this time, you're reaching out to other families, reach out, which is the biggest thing that I think I can say to folks is ask for help when help is needed.
Thank you so much, Darcy. Really appreciated the tips and strategies that you have about building resilience among children, finding opportunities to build resilience, to be really intentional about that. And also thank you for sharing those sort of everyday signs of distress. Some of them are very subtle or can be hard to identify. So thank you for helping us understand what we need to be looking for. And we are running short on time. I guess I will just close by saying a couple things. One is that I know we have a good number of mental health workers in the audience as well. And to you, I want to say thank you. I think that the work that we've been doing has been incredibly impactful and not always acknowledged. The mental health needs right now have been astronomical. And so I know many mental health workers are feeling overwhelmed and overworked. So I want to say that the work that you're doing is very valuable. And I also want to encourage you to find ways to take care of yourselves, maybe new ways of taking care of yourselves. At the same time, holding tight to your normal routines and your values, keeping your support networks close. This is a time where we can easily find ourselves overrun with the work that we're doing. So thank you and take care. And then for all of our other audience members, I just want to challenge everyone to have more of these conversations. This isn't a one and done kind of a conversation. Check in with people around you and check in often. Maybe those who are in business settings or in other companies where you are a leader or a supervisor or some other boss type, think about what kinds of changes you might make in that setting, what resources you might make available, who you might bring in to give a talk, or policy that you might change. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our panelists for sharing such informative information, helpful resources. We appreciate you.